What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. Tonight, we're hanging out. It's Thursday evening. We have some football on tonight, and we're going to see some interesting Patrick Mahomes offense and maybe some Anthony Richardson offenses for about 1 to 2 quarters, it sounds like. So we'll be waiting for that. But in this video, we're going to be hanging out and doing a live rankings update. I've never done a live rankings update, but I do think that we will be able to learn some things and just some live thought processes as I'm making these rankings. We'll pull up the screen share here and I'll kind of show you guys what I'm working for. But anyways, we'll get the screen share up, and I just want to shout out real quick. If you guys are new to the fellowship, definitely like the video, subscribe if you guys are new. Check out thefantasyfellowship.com. I'm running an August promo right now for 30 days. You're going to get in for $7. You get access to all my projections, rankings, cheat sheets, tons of data, the depth chart, the projections links, the redraft guide, the mid-round targets articles. These articles are pretty good. You have a lot of data studies and just a ton of stuff in here, as well as Discord access. So check out thefantasyfellowship.com, and we're going to hop right into the quarterback rankings. Good evening to Aiden. We're just going to be hanging out, and I'm just going to be live ranking my guys here. Now, I just downloaded this ADP from Fantasy Pros. And it's an aggregate of ESPN, Sleeper, NFL.com, and RT Sports. I don't know what RT Sports is, but we'll give it a try. But we're just going to be, going through and just making our list over here on the far right. And my QB1, let's talk about that. I do think Josh Allen has been a stud the last 4 years. I think he's been QB1, 1, 2, and 1 the last handful of seasons. But I don't know if I can see it getting there this year. He ran for 15 touchdowns this year. He loses Stephon Diggs. He loses Gabe Davis, and now he's working with a weird group of guys. I like Dalton Kincaid. I think Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, and Khalil Shakir are fun, but I see that a little bit as a downgrade compared to last year. And then I just don't think he's going to run for 15 touchdowns. I do think Jalen Hurts, and we got Aiden asking about Jahan Dotson here. Does Jaden Dotson hurt the Eagles receivers at all? And I think the clear answer is no. They run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, and when I updated my projections for the Eagles, I took two to 4 or 5 catches off of each A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, but those guys are going to command their targets. I think last year they tried 3 or 4 guys at the wide receiver 3 position, and they combined for maybe 60 to 70 targets. So I like Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to steal maybe 3, 4, 5 touchdowns at the most. He's going to be a 4 to 5, 600-yard receiver. It actually hurts Jahan Dotson's value pretty bad going from Washington to Philadelphia. So I'm kind of out on Dotson, unless Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown get hurt at some time. We'll talk about him on the waiver wire. But for me, I think this helps Jalen Hurts. And I have Jalen Hurts as my QB1 in fantasy football this year, so I'm going to lock him in as QB1. I do think his odds of rushing for double-digit touchdowns are still pretty strong. I love that receiver core of A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and now Jahan Dotson. You also add Saquon Barkley out of the backfield, which might be a better receiver than DeAndre Swift. I'm clicking Jalen Hurts here. I trust him in that offense to get it back together. Kellen Moore, offensive coordinating, I think it's going to be a really sweet year for the Eagles, and I'm very excited. I will run in Josh Allen as my QB2, but honestly, I don't like to take Josh Allen. I don't like to take the first QB off the board. For him to pay off at ADP, he needs to finish as QB1, and I'm a little hesitant to do so. I think in ESPN right now, these ADPs are inflated, honestly, because when I do my mock drafts, they go in the 4th round, which is fine to pay up for those guys. But QB1, Jalen Hurts. QB2, Josh Allen. I'm going to run Pat Mahomes in here as QB3. I love taking Patrick Mahomes. If I just want to wait for a top QB, let Hurts and Allen go off the board. I'm like, yep, I'm pulling Mahomes. The dude's got 5,000-yard potential this year with the additions of Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown whenever he returns. Huge boost to the receiver room. Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy paired with Travis Kelce, it's a really sweet look for the Chiefs passing game. And I will take a rebound. Like Mahomes, everything dipped last year. His numbers were pretty pedestrian. Still good, but not top 5 QB good. Not MVP quality like they could be this year. So we're going to lock in Mahomes QB3. And then QB4 to me is a no-brainer. It is Lamar Jackson coming off of an MVP season that I don't know if it was MVP caliber. He was on the team that just won the most games and was the number 1 seed in the AFC. I like Lamar a lot. I think adding Derrick Henry is going to help him even more because you have to respect that run game So there's going to be a lot of RPO play action type stuff that's going to work this year for the Ravens. Year 2, Todd Monken system. Zay Flowers, year 2, healthy Mark Andrews, healthy Isaiah Likely. And then we'll see about those second and third receivers. Rashad Bateman, maybe some of the rookies step up there. We'll see. I like Nelson Aguilar still there too. But that's a clear top 4 QB ranking for me. And then that's like, honestly, I think it's Hurts, Allen at the top of the tier. And then tier 2 for me would be Mahomes and Lamar. Let's look at the third tier here. I can't put CJ Stroud as my 5th QB. I don't know if I want to put Anthony Richardson as my 5th QB. And with all of this Jamar Chase, will he play, won't he play stuff, I'm a little hesitant on Joe Burrow. Same thing with Dak Prescott. I'm very hesitant on these guys because there's a chance that these guys don't play week 1. I think it's a very small percentage. But if I assume that they're going to play, these would be my next 2 quarterbacks in my rankings because you have a healthy Joe Burrow coming in. I think the wrist and everything is fine. The calf's good. Sounds like he's been having some really good practices. If Jamar Chase misses week 1, they still have T. Higgins and a plethora of other guys to throw the ball to. I think, Chase ain't going to sit out the whole season is kind of my thinking. And the odds of CeeDee Lamb or Jamar Chase missing week 1, I don't think are that great. I want a piece of that Bengals offense, and Joe Burrow gives you the best of everything over there. I do think the Bengals are going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. And then Dak Prescott, man, he was QB3 last year. They threw the ball a ton. I liked CeeDee Lamb, of course. Jake Ferguson there is the second target. Brandon Cooks might be the second target. And then it sure sounds like Jalen Tolbert is stepping up and taking over that number 3 receiver role. So I'm just going to, these guys are going to throw the ball a ton, and they offer a little bit of rushing upside. So we'll lock those guys in at 5 and 6. I just think they're stable offenses with good weapons. And, they're going to be, 4,500 passing yards, maybe 30-plus touchdowns, 200 to 300 yards rushing and some rushing touchdowns. My next QB, and I'm still not taking Stroud and Anthony Richardson yet. I do like these guys a lot. But I'm going with Jordan Love as my QB6. Last year, he was like the second or third QB for the last half of the year. You're getting everybody back healthy. It sounds like the Packers have had a really healthy training camp, aside from Marshawn Lloyd getting hurt. But Love's got a ton of weapons to throw the ball to and spread it out. It's going to be hard for defenses to figure out what's going on. And just QB7 for me, I think he's a top 5 QB potentially. I love drafting Jordan Love. And then I'll get Anthony Richardson off the board. I do think the rushing upside that we saw last year from Richardson in his rookie year, it's hard to ignore. And he doesn't have to do much as a passer. He can do enough as a passer, and it's that rushing upside that we're looking for. The dude's going to run for a touchdown probably 80% of the time in a game. And on top of that, he just needs to add about 200 yards and a passing touchdown or 2. So I'm taking the risk on Anthony Richardson. I will put CJ Stroud here at QB9. I struggle with CJ Stroud because he doesn't run the ball. Of the quarterbacks here ahead of him, he runs the ball the least. I do think he's got 4,500 yard potential. He's got 35 touchdown potential. But I just worry a little bit that his rushing upside holds him back. He was about QB 7 to 8 last year, and I expect him to kind of be the same. I do like the addition of Stephon Diggs, but I think I'm taking the upside swing at some of these rushing quarterbacks ahead of him. QB number 10, and this is kind of the end of the tier because I think from Joe Burrow, this is the tier I want to draft my QB from. I don't get a lot of CJ Stroud because I think he's just at QB5 ADP. I don't know if he has as good a shot as a QB5 as some of these other guys. He'd have to throw for 40 touchdowns, which is definitely in the possibilities. But I'll take Joe Burrow, Prescott, Love, Richardson, and those guys over Stroud. But Kyler Murray, this might be one of the best array of weapons he's ever had. Rookie Marvin Harrison Jr. I like Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, and Zay Jones there as the 4. I love Trey McBride. I like James Conner out of the backfield, and they have a couple other backs that they're going to mix in. Kyler Murray, man, if you just go into your draft and say, I want one of these QBs, Murray, Jordan Love, those guys fall to the 7th, 8th round of ESPN drafts. Like Jordan Love in the 70s here, Kyler Murray at 73. You can get these guys for free in the 6th or 7th round, usually where you pull these guys. And that's kind of the huge tier 3 for me. I think all these guys have top 5 upside. The value is pretty good. Instead of taking Hurts, Allen, Mahomes, Lamar in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, you can grab more receivers, running backs, or a tight end, an elite tight end there, and have fun doing that. we'll start with my fourth tier here, and it's going to be Jayden Daniels, dude. I think if you're in a 10 or 12 man league, wait for Jayden Daniels because he's going to have some rushing upside that's up there with Lamar, Allen, and Hurts. He's got double-digit touchdown rushing upside. We saw the rushing touchdown in the preseason. He's going to rush for 700-plus yards. And, they moved Jahan Dotson away, which is okay. Like, they're going to have some other guys there. But this offense is going to be fast-paced. It's going to run the ball a lot. It's going to have a lot of Jayden Daniels scrambles. It's going to have a lot of Jayden Daniels red zone opportunities to score touchdowns. And I want rushing quarterbacks. I absolutely love Jayden Daniels. If you're in a 12-man league, just wait. Just wait. These 10 quarterbacks always go ahead of Jayden Daniels. When you see the 10th quarterback go, that's when it's time to pull Jayden Daniels, who I think does offer top 5 upside every week. He does offer more injury risk, but he's the type of quarterback that I want. I want a quarterback that's going to run the hell out of the ball, and he's still going to have a good throwing profile too. I absolutely love Jayden Daniels here. QB 12 for me will be Brock Purdy, just because it's arguably the best offense in football. Let's just assume Brandon Ayuk stays around. You have Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, CMC. That's the NFC Pro Bowl lineup, basically. It's pretty sick. And Purdy does offer some rushing upside, not a lot, but enough to be okay and to be a late QB1 starter for you. It's such a safe pick. If you want to wait for QB and say, I'm going to go for Jayden Daniels, but if you miss him, you can just collect Brock Purdy and collect your 17, 18 points per game. Now we get to the QB2s, which I probably don't want to go into my draft. If you're in a 10 or 12 man league, I don't want one of these guys as my QB1. But if you draft Jayden Daniels, you could grab Purdy or Caleb or one of these guys as your QB2. I think that'll do. But for super flex leagues, these are your ideal QB2s. We're gonna put Trevor Lawrence here at 13, and he has a really nice rushing floor, which I like a lot to boost his overall floor. He's got 4,000 plus passing yards. I think they improved the receiving core this year. Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., who's balling out right now in training camp and preseason. And then you also have Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne out of the backfield. He's got a safe passing upside floor and a really nice rushing floor of 300 to 400 yards and a few touchdowns. I love Trevor Lawrence. I think he was a top 12 QB the last 2 years. And last year, they got off to that 8-3 start. People easily forget. I'm taking Trevor Lawrence there. I will put Caleb Williams here at QB 14 because I'm swinging for upside. And Goff and Tua just don't run the ball enough. These guys are going to throw for a ton of yards, probably 30-plus touchdowns. But Caleb Williams has the ability to reach 200 to 300-plus rushing yards, and we saw in the preseason game that he will scramble for a rushing touchdown. And I think Caleb Williams is as advertised. I think he's going to be a fringe QB1 right out of the gate. Upside for Caleb Williams is like QB 7, 8, 9, 10, kind of like what we saw CJ Stroud last year. I will run in Jared Goff and Tua Tagovailoa here as 15 and 16. They're kind of interchangeable to me. These guys are kind of the same player. They're going to throw the ball a lot. I like their weapons a ton. Fun offenses, probably both top 5 offenses. They just don't have the rushing upside that we're looking for. And that's kind of the end of that tier for me. I think Jayden Daniels and Purdy are kind of in the tier 4 by themselves. I'll say tier 5 is this group here, guys that are knocking on the door to be QB1s. And then let's look at QB 17, and this will be kind of the next tier. These guys aren't really draftable in one QB leagues, but super flex leagues, they do have their value. You have Herbert, Rodgers, Cousins, Stafford, Watson, Mayfield, and a couple other guys down here. None of these quarterbacks have rushing upside. Rodgers, Cousins, and Stafford. We know they're old. So I'm going to put Justin Herbert here as my QB 17, and I get it. The receivers are not great there. The running backs are not great there. Herbert's coming off a plantar fascia issue, which could stifle some of his rushing upside, but that's what he's kind of been known as, like a nice little scrambler where he can get 3, 4, 5 touchdowns in a year and he can add some rushing yards and avoid some sacks. I'm a little hesitant this year, though, just with the plantar fascia early. Hopefully he's healed enough, and it sounds like he's had a really good week of practice back at this week. So I have no injury concerns on Herbert. He's back at practice, full practicing. And I get it. Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey, DJ Chark, and ragtag group of tight ends and running backs. But he could be very, very efficient this year. He could throw for a lot of touchdowns. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play safe, and they're still going to be able to throw the ball with one of the best passers in the game, and that's Herbert. After Herbert, I'm going to put Matthew Stafford here just because I think he's got the best group of weapons. Between Rodgers and Cousins, we're talking Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kieran Williams out of the backfield. I think those are, round 2-3 picks in your fantasy league this year. And I think Stafford's younger than Rodgers and Cousins. The Rams offense was clicking a lot down the stretch last year. I love the Rams offense. I'm going to put Kirk Cousins here at 19. Cousins has the ability to throw the ball for almost 5,000 yards this year if he wants. He's probably more in that 4,500 yard range though, but I can see 30 plus touchdowns here. Heavy 3 wide receiver set team. They're going to air the ball out, dump it off to Bijan, maybe Algier every now and then. But Pitts and London, man, like we like these talents at the receiver position. I want Kirk Cousins on my team this year. And then we'll go Aaron Rodgers here. And that'll end that tier. I think these guys are all mid to solid QB2s in Superflex leagues. Rodgers, obviously, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and a couple other guys to throw the ball to. I think he offers zero rushing, like both Kirk and Rodgers offer zero rushing upside, but they're going to throw the ball for 4,000 plus yards easily and flirt with, 30 touchdowns, something in that range. Now we get to a list of questionable characters. Let me actually freeze my first row here. All right. Watson, Mayfield, Nix, Fields, Levis, Geno Smith. I'm gonna put Baker Mayfield here just because I feel pretty good about him and his job security and his offense. Like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan's balling out as a rookie, Cade Otton, Rashad White as a receiving back. Like I might actually prefer Baker Mayfield over some of these guys, but he also doesn't have a lot of rushing upside. Still a little untrustworthy, just from the last few years of his from his logs. But Mayfield's pretty safe QB2, I think, this year, and he played probably the best year of his career last year. Watson, Nix, Fields, Levis, Geno Smith. I'm going to put Levis and Geno Smith in ahead of these guys. With Levis, I'm buying in on Levis as a low-end QB2 for Superflex leagues. I think what they did this offseason was pretty spectacular, adding Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd to go with DeAndre Hopkins. Traylon Burks as your 4 is still a pretty good number 4. Chigo Okonkwo, whatever, as the tight end. But Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears is a pretty good 1-2 punch at running back. They both offer receiving chops. I think Levis has some ability to run the ball if he needs to. He's got a deep arm. Calvin Ridley pairs really well with that. I kind of want to buy the hype on Will Levis. Geno Smith, we're still worried about his job security, but man, I really like the new offensive coordinator and head coach change for the Seattle Seahawks offense. We're going to see keep in mind, this was the offense that the Washington Huskies ran last year. They got 3 receivers drafted and a tight end. There was another tight end that could have been drafted. It's a deep ball, kind of air the ball out offense, and I think they have the weapons to do so with Metcalf, JSN year 2, Lockett, and Noah Fant. It's a good group, and I'm open to Geno Smith. Maybe not winning a lot of games for Seattle, but being productive for fantasy football purposes. I will put Deshaun Watson here as QB 24. Haven't seen Watson play good ball in a while, but he does put up fantasy numbers. His fantasy numbers were not bad last year. Still got the shoulder thing. But I really like what they did this offseason too. And they're kind of shifting to more passing as an offense identity. Jerry Jeudy, Mark Cooper, David Njoku, Elijah Moore is the 3. It's a good group. It's a good group to throw the ball to. And Watson does have some rushing upside for us. Now we're looking at some guys that just don't really excite us. I'm going to put Derek Carr here as my QB 25. Now, he actually played really well last year. He was a top 5 QB down the stretch the last month of football. They just don't have a lot of offensive help. Offensive line's among the worst in the league. I love Olave. I like Kamara, but Taysom Hill's going to come in and steal some goal line stuff. Rashid Shaheed's kind of dinged up right now. Carr offers no rushing upside. I think he's just a bench QB3 rotational guy for Superflex. Now we're looking at some questionable guys. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put Bo Nix here at QB 26. He looks pretty good in preseason. And I just think the bumper bowling quarterback style that Sean Payton requires, we saw the ceiling with Drew Brees, and we've seen other quarterbacks play well in that system. Teddy Bridgewater, there's been a few other guys in New Orleans Saints that have done well. Russell Wilson was still a top 15 QB last year in this system. Bo Nix, young, athletic, safe and steady. He's going to make the right throw. He's not going to force the ball into situations that will cost the offense turnovers. I think Bo Nix is pretty steady, and he's a really good QB3 for you. I will put Bryce Young here as my next QB3. He's going to play the whole season. They've improved the weapons around him. Dave Canales, I'm buying into Bryce Young being better than he was last year. I might make an alteration here. I'm going to move Derek Carr down and Nix and Young. I'm going to move Sam Darnold here to QB 25. Now, the Vikings offense throws the ball a ton. I think they led the league in passing yards last year. And no matter how you feel about Sam Darnold, the Vikings system is pretty good. Nick Mullins balled out. Saw Josh Dobbs play well. Kirk Cousins was playing well. He's got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison to throw the ball to, Aaron Jones to throw the ball to. I think I might be too low on Sam Darnold. He might actually belong next to Baker Mayfield. And maybe we should do that. Let's actually do that here. We're gonna bump Levis down here. And I don't feel great about Sam Darnold as a player. I respect the Vikings offense and their system that led to fantasy points last year. So Sam Darnold at QB 22 there for you, Aiden. Now we're just kind of in the doldrums here. This is kind of the whatever tier. I don't know if Drake May's playing. I don't know if Russell Wilson or Gardner, or I don't know if Russell Wilson or Justin Fields are going to play. Daniel Jones is going to start the year. You got Gardner Minshew down here. This is looking pretty ugly, to say the least. So I'm gonna go Gardner Minshew here, who offers some rushing upside, and he's throwing the ball to Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer. Decent. I think it's okay. I will put Russell Wilson next because I think he's the starting quarterback for the Steelers week 1, and he'll let that run out as long as he can. I'll put Daniel Jones here at QB 31, and then I'm gonna put Drake May QB 32. I don't think Jacoby Myers is he's going to start. I think Jacoby starts week 1, but that leash is very short. So I think Drake May will get into the October. Like we'll start seeing Drake May start in October. But just out of why is Tom Brady ranked by ESPN? I don't freaking know. But we'll finish up here with just some backups here. You got Justin Fields, who I like. I don't think we're going to see Penix this year as long as Kirk Cousins is playing well. We might see Aiden O'Connell play. We might see Joe Flacco play. But if I'm being real here, we'll put Jacoby Brissett down here at 34 just because he's going to start the year. I will also kind of want to put Drew Lock up here because I think we're going to see Drew Lock play at some point for the Giants. And then I think there's a good chance that we do see Jameis Winston play. I could do Sam Howell. I could do Jameis Winston. I could do, Penix. I could do Joe Flacco. But I think we see Winston play at some point for the Cleveland Browns. So there you have it. That's the QB room. About 22, 23 minutes on the QBs. Let's move on to the running backs. And I'm going to try and pick up the pace here just because I don't want this to drag on for 2 hours. But let's have some fun with this. I'm still ranking Christian McCaffrey as running back 1. I know the calf injury right now is not ideal, but best running back in football. Best offense in football. He might lose some touches that he had last year as they try and keep him healthy and just on track to be, to play the Super Bowl. But you still feel really good about McCaffrey. You have to love McCaffrey there. Now, Breece or Bijan, this is such a tough question. I feel safer with Bijan than I do with Breece Hall. Just because I don't know if I both quarterbacks are coming off an Achilles injury. For some reason, I trust Bijan more to be a safer, steadier player, but Breece Hall is the swing for upside and talent. So I'm going to go Breece Hall 2, Bijan RB3. Middle, top 5 pick, you want one of these 3 running backs. I think it's pretty safe to say. That's my whole first tier of running backs. Tier 2 is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, who is just – people are selling Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going way too late in drafts. He was always QB4 or running back 4 all summer until this hamstring kind of thing flared up, and it sounds like it's no concern at all. I want Jahmyr Gibbs on my team. I think he was RB8 or 9 last year. I see more volume for him in every asset of the game. And honestly, he wasn't that great as a receiver last year. I expect him to improve and be one of the best pieces of that line's offense. RB5, man, this is where it gets a little tough. I'm gonna put Jonathan Taylor here, RB5, because I think he's safe and steady. With Anthony Richardson in that backfield, he's going to get opportunities to run the ball and get rushing touchdowns and just grind people down. They're going to respect that RPO and the play action. And, they might load boxes here, but I think Jonathan Taylor is safe. He might not be top 5 caliber, but he is definitely top 10. And I like the safety of Jonathan Taylor quite a bit. Saquon Barkley for me, I don't know if I want to put him up this high yet. I'm gonna put Kieran Williams here at RB6 just because we saw him be a league winner last year. We know he's really good. They brought in Blake Corum, but I view Blake Corum as a handcuff. And until we see Kieran Williams fall off, I'm going to continue to trust that he's going to be a top 5 threat at running back every week. My RB6 will be Travis Etienne. I love Etienne. He's a great receiving back. I think he's going to be the lead back again for the Jags. Touchdowns will be there. And I'm looking for receiving volume here. And that's what Etienne offers. Tank Bigsby's had a nice summer in training camp, but I still want Etienne as a potential top 5 running back. I'll put Saquon Barkley here at RB8. I don't draft a lot of Saquon Barkley just because I just think that Eagles offense, man, it's tailored around Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns. It's tailored around A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. I think Saquon's the 3rd or 4th best player on this team. If you're counting Jalen Hurts, he's the 4th best player. And we know rushing touchdowns won't be there. Saquon's going to have to score from 5 yards out in order to get those rushing touchdowns. And I also just worry about the receiving volume there for Saquon Barkley. RB9, I'm going Isaiah Pacheco here. Safe and steady, Kansas City running back 1. They're going to be blowing teams out, running the football. The RB2 situation there is a complete mess. The Deneric Prince, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, rugby player, whatever. It's Carson Steele. It's all Isaiah Pacheco there for me. I will put James Cook here at RB10. And this is kind of a huge tier for me because I think after Gibbs, like all of these guys could be top 5 running backs. This is a big tier for me, but I love getting James Cook. I think he's the anchor player in the Bills offense outside of Josh Allen. It's James Cook's offense. We're going to see James Cook take off this year. I feel good about that. I'm going to put Devon Achane here, RB11. I feel very good about Devon Achane. I know he doesn't get a lot of touches and enough volume as he should, but man, like he's going to be more involved as a receiver this year. I think the Dolphins offense is one of the best in football. And last year we saw Devon Achane, when he played, he was a league-winning running back, a top 5 swing every week for you. You want Devon Achane on your team. Fine, I'll put Derrick Henry here. And these are kind of full PPR settings, but Derrick Henry will be a low-end RB1 just on touchdown volume and rushing volume there. I'm going to put Josh Jacobs here at RB13, and we'll kind of say this was the tier. JT to Devon Achane, and then we'll have this really solid RB2 tier for you guys. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. I'm kind of nervous on Rachaad White, and he's popping a lot of my advanced metrics again, but I'm just a little nervous that Bucky Irving's going to be involved as a running back too. I'm nervous about the offensive coordinator change, maybe different zone running scheme. I still don't like Tampa Bay's offensive line. I think I view Rachaad White as a solid RB2 in full PPR. We're going to go Kenneth Walker here at RB15, who they're talking him up as a 3-down running back. And I think Walker is one of the more talented guys. He actually played really well as a receiving back last year, which a lot of people don't think of him as a receiving back, but he can totally do it. And I think he is the bell cow back for Seattle. I'll put Joe Mixon here, RB16. I'm going to put Alvin Kamara. These guys are, just old faithful running backs here. James Conner. And we can put Aaron Jones in there too. This tier of running backs, to me, just old faithful RB2s to start your year. They might not hold up or play the best down the stretch, but the first month of football is going to be pretty good for these guys. I think Mixon in Houston offense, he's going to get a lot of volume, a lot of rushing touchdown upside. Kamara is still a 60, 70 catch player. James Conner, when healthy, was a league winner last year. I'm still going to draft him as the bell cow back for the Cardinals. And Aaron Jones was a top 5 back down the stretch last year and into the real playoffs. And I think the Vikings are going to lean on Jones to start the year quite a bit. So that is the old man RB tier. Now it gets messy. Swift, Montgomery, Stevenson, Zamir White, Najee, Mostert, Pollard, Warren. Kind of ugly, right? I'm going to go Najee Harris, who I think Arthur Smith's offense, they gave 400 carries and over 100 targets to Najee, or to Warren, to Algier and Bijan last year. I think the Steelers back, this is a better duo than Algier and Bijan. Like, obviously, Bijan's the best player, but this is a really good duo. I'm buying the dip on the Warren hamstring. He might miss week 1, but I still want Warren on my team this year. Steelers' offense identity is to run the ball and play football, play good defense on football. So I'm drafting both those guys as low-end RB2s. I'm going to put DeAndre Swift here, RB22, full PPR. He's going to get receiving volume. A little bit nervous about the rushing touchdown and the rushing volume, but I think receiving volume gets him there. I'll put David Montgomery and Ramondre Stevenson here as my last RB2s. Ramondre, great player on a bad team. I'm rooting for him. A little bit nervous there. Nervous he loses some of his receiving volume too, just with bringing in Antonio Gibson. That does worry me a little bit. And Montgomery's just safe and steady. We know he's getting his, 16, 18 carries. He's going to get a target or two per game and a really good chance at a rushing touchdown every week. So I'll take Montgomery and Pollard there. I will put Javonte Williams here. And my brain wants to put Javonte. I'm going to do it because this is nuts. Javonte Williams is a really good player coming off of a full year removed from his knee injury. I'm going to put Javonte Williams here. The receiving upside's huge with Denver running backs. Sean Payton throws the ball to the running backs the most, and Javonte is the 1A in Denver. I like Javonte quite a bit this year. Let's go ahead and we're going to get Tony Pollard off the board here, guys. I think Tony Pollard's in for a bounce back year. He looked explosive. He looked good the other night in that preseason game. They paid him. I expect Pollard to be the clear lead back in Tennessee. Let's go ahead and we'll get Raheem Mostert off the board here. I know he's 32, but he can be your starting running back too for as long as he's healthy. He's going to lead the team in touchdowns. He's a pretty reliable guy if you want to wait for your running back too. And then we get to some tricky decisions, man. We'll go Devin Singletary here. He's got the whole Giants backfield to himself. He's going to be running 80, 90% of the snaps. Feels pretty safe and reliable. Not a great offense, but kind of like, Stevenson, he's going to get all the volume there. Fine. I will put Zamir White here, RB29. I don't think he offers anything as a receiver. He's kind of a poor man's David Montgomery on a bad team. Touchdowns might be, 5, 6, 7 at that point. I think he's a low-end RB2 with some flex upside, I guess I would say. We're going to go ahead and get Tyjae Spears here. I think he's got a really nice receiving role in that offense, and he's a co-starter with Tony Pollard. I want to buy the Titans offense there. Full PPR, we're going to put Eckler and Brian Robinson next. I'll go Brian Robinson ahead of Eckler, but I think both guys will be of use. They're ideal RB3s on your bench. The next group of guys, we're going to go Zach Moss and Chase Brown because I want a piece of the Bengals backfield. We've been drafting Joe Mixon in the 3rd and 4th round for it feels like a decade. Moss is a thumper. He's the 1st and 2nd down kind of runner. I expect him to lead the team in touches or carries. Brown to be the explosive home run hitter, receiving back that I think could offer some league-winning upside down the stretch. I'm going to go Gus Edwards next because I expect him to lead the Chargers in rushing attempts. And fine, I will get Jonathan Brooks off the board here. I don't expect Jonathan Brooks to play until October. And when he does come back, what is the upside here for Jonathan Brooks? Why would the Panthers want to play him and get him the ball 20, 25 times in October? I see a ramp-up period in October. It usually takes 2, 3, 4 games to get a player back up to speed. Hasn't practiced all summer. I think the ramp-up's looking really low. Yes, he could be a league winner, but I think you're babysitting him for at least the first 4 games on PUP, and then you have to, let him overtake Chuba Hubbard at some point here. So I'm ranking Chuba Hubbard pretty comfortably here, right next to Jonathan Brooks. So I think Chuba Hubbard's starting the first 4 games, and he's going to continue to be the lead back until Brooks finally hops him and he offers some upside here. I will take Rico Dowdle next as who I think is the best back. He's the best back in Dallas, and, put him on your bench. He'll get more work as the season continues. We'll get Jerome Ford out of here. I'm a little bit nervous about Jerome Ford, though, because we do have Nick Chubb coming back. You also have the workings of a committee the first 4 games. And when you I think Chuba's a better bet than Jerome Ford because it's very clearly Chuba plus Brooks. But with the Browns, they like Deonta Foreman. They like Nick Chubb. They obviously like Jerome Ford, but they also like Pierre Strong and Naheem Hines. I'm very unclear. And as they're leading more pass heavy, I don't think I have a room for Jerome Ford and the patience that it requires there. So I'll throw Nick Chubb in here next just because put him on your IR. He's going to be back week 5, 6, and he could just be a beast. We know Nick Chubb's really good. I'll get Zeke off the board here. Just a guy that he was a fantasy starter down the stretch last year. He could just be the guy that gets 12 to 15 touches per game for the Cowboys. We have a whole block of handcuffs here. Corum, Benson, Dobbins, and Charbonnet, but not so fast. I'm going to put Tyler Algier and Ty Chandler above here. Tyler Algier he's a piece of the offense every week. He's going to get 10 to 12 touches per game. Bijan goes down, you got a league-winning back. Ty Chandler, he's going to be involved in the offense every week. Aaron Jones gets hurt, you got a startable running back here. I will go ahead and get this whole tier of Corum, Benson, Dobbins, and Charbonnet off the board next. These guys are just purely handcuffs to me. I think Corum and Benson are fine, but even when Kieran and Connor are healthy, these guys just aren't going to get any potential use for our fantasy teams. Dobbins could put Edwards in like a tandem, and I still think Dobbins with the Achilles injury, I'm intrigued because he's been looking really good this summer in training camp and preseason. And I think Dobbins could be a guy that if he looks good week 1, week 2, they're going to give him more work. And he's just not the profile I like to bet on, but I still remember J.K. Dobbins being a really good player in the NFL for the Ravens. Charbonnet, just a handcuff guy. We're not using him unless someone gets hurt. And now we're kind of purely in handcuff range here. I will get Jaleel McLaughlin off the board, though, because I think he's got a weekly, 6 to 8 point fantasy floor. He's a receiving back. He'll get some carries. If Javonte goes down, he's got some upside there. Let's go ahead and get Antonio Gibson and Jalen Wright off the board. I think Gibson and McLaughlin are kind of the same player. They're going to have, 3-4 targets per game and maybe 5 to 8 carries per game, something like that, where they'll have low end RB2 flex opportunities. And if anything happens to their starter, they have some upside there. Jalen Wright, he just needs one injury to Mostert or Devon Achane to get on the field and get some volume. He's a good player. We've seen him play in the preseason. I like him a lot. I'm going to move Khalil Herbert up to RB51. I think he leads the Bears in rushing attempts this year. He's still one of the most underrated backs in football. I'm comfortable stashing Khalil Herbert because I think he's going to be their goal line back. He's going to be their short yardage back. Swift's kind of in that receiving role. And if anything happens to Swift, we know Swift has been injury prone throughout his career. I think Khalil Herbert could be the guy you're looking for. I'm going to put Bucky Irving next, who I expect to get some work as the RB2 in Tampa Bay. If anything happens to Rachaad White, you got something there. We'll get Tyrone Tracy off the board next. I know he's coming off of an ankle injury, but he's back at practice already. He's a receiving back. He could eat into Devin Singletary's workload there. Just a high upside pick as a rookie. We'll go ahead and get some more handcuffs off the board here. Ray Davis, Buffalo Bills, handcuffed to James Cook. Not a lot of rushing upside there in Buffalo, but I do like the game. I like Braylon Allen as the handcuff to Breece Hall. I do like, we're kind of done. We're kind of done here. I'm going to throw Tank Bigsby up there as a handcuff to Travis Etienne. And let's go ahead and get Marshawn Lloyd finally off the board. We haven't seen him much in preseason and training camp, but we know he's a good player. He could get on the field more as the season goes on. I think Kimani Vidal could be a guy that gets opportunities as the season goes on. He's finally healthy and playing well in preseason. This is an ugly group here, guys. I'm going to go ahead and get Jordan Mason in here as the handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. It sounds like he's definitely, exactly. It sounds like Mason to me and all the 49ers stuff that I'm reading, it sounds like Mason has hopped Elijah Mitchell as the handcuff here. He's safe and reliable. He might get a handful of carries per game and a catch or two, but Mitchell we just can't trust. We just cannot trust Elijah Mitchell. It's really ugly down here, guys. I'm going to put the Eagles backs here because if anything happens to Saquon Barkley, we're going to see a duo of Kenneth Gainwell and Will Shipley. Dameon Pierce is the handcuff in Houston, but it just doesn't sound great. I think Alexander Mattison maybe as the handcuff to Zamir White is fine. I'll get Kendre Miller off the board. We haven't seen him all training camp, and the coach speaks pretty bad, but I still like the upside talent there. And if they do cut him, he could go to Dallas and be a potential threat there for opportunities. Let's get Audric Estimate off the board here, who Broncos really like him. He's kind of the clear backup, though, to Javonte Williams in terms of carries. I'll get Elijah Mitchell off the board. Let's just kind of clean house here and just get some of these disgusting vets. Hopefully, you guys don't need to draft these guys here. This is all pretty dusty stuff. I just kind of stretched it out to RB75. I'm getting Roshan Johnson off the board as the RB3 in Chicago. A.J. Dillon and Justice Hill. Justice Hill's the RB2 in Baltimore for now. No idea where Dalvin Cook signs. You could draft Keaton Mitchell and just say whatever happens when he gets back could be kind of fun. Jamal Williams is the RB2 per se. Yeah, it's pretty ugly. This is done. I still like Trey Sermon as the backup here to Jonathan Taylor. I don't know, guys. I just might be done ranking running backs. We'll go 73 running backs, and maybe I just finish the rest here later. But we'll move into the wide receivers here. We're at 40 minutes here. I'm going to keep picking up the pace. Wide receivers, baby. They have Tyreek Hill as the wide receiver 1, which I'm fine with, but CeeDee Lamb's going to play. I'm gonna go Lamb and Chase here, and this is the first tier for me. I think these guys are all absolute ballers. You want one of these guys on your teams this year. I'm still taking CeeDee Lamb because I think he's got some more to prove here. Last year, he didn't really get going until about week 8. And from week 8 to 18, I think he averaged 28 fantasy points per game. So he is the best receiver every week when he's out there. Jamar Chase, same thing. I think we're yet to see the career year from Jamar Chase. And the reason why I put Tyreek at 3 is just because I think, Father Time's getting close to Tyreek Hill falling down. I like Tyreek Hill as a mid-first round pick, but I'm taking still the upside swings on Lamb and Chase. Wide receiver 4, I'm going Amon-Ra St. Brown, arguably the safest and most reliable pick in the first round for wide receiver. I'm going Garrett Wilson at 5 over Justin Jefferson. I will put Justin Jefferson at 6, but man, I'm just worried. The vibes in Minnesota are not great. Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, they can still, feed Justin Jefferson, but I'm just a little nervous about some of that. Still one of the best receivers. You could take JJ over Garrett Wilson, but I'm not doing it over Amon-Ra. I will get AJ Brown here out as wide receiver 7. And then we get to a lot of questions, man. I think Puka can be your wide receiver 8, but, I don't know. Like he's dinged up right now. Teams will be focusing on him. Maybe Cooper Kupp gets hot to start the year. That could be totally true. I'm going Drake London here next as wide receiver 9. I'm all in on Drake London in that passing offense. I think he's going to be a stud for Kirk Cousins. He's going to have a career high all across the board. I will put Devontae Adams next here as my wide receiver 10. Gardner Minshew, he fed Michael Pittman to a career year last year. Devontae will be fine. Devontae's still Devontae. Wide receiver 11. I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. And where I like to take Marvin Harrison Jr. is as my wide receiver 2. You can start your draft with A.J. Brown and get Marvin Harrison as your wide receiver 2, and that feels pretty good. He's going to be a weaker wide receiver 1 for you, but when you lock him in as wide receiver 2, that's what feels really, really good to me. We're going Chris Olave here as wide receiver 12. I get it. Derek Carr and the Saints, it's not a sexy offense, but Chris Olave is locked in as the clear lead receiver in targets. And he's gonna be up there in target share. He's gonna find enough volume to get the job done. We're gonna go Nico Collins and Deebo Samuel next as my receivers 13 and 14. Nico, I expect to be the ace for CJ Stroud, 80, 90 catches, almost 1,300 yards, and probably leads the team in touchdowns. Deebo Samuel, man, when he's healthy, he's a top 5 receiver. He's one of my favorite guys to draft in fantasy football this year. Evans, Ayuk, Pittman, Kupp, Diggs, Metcalf, Waddle, Smith. I'll go ahead and get Mike Evans in there. He's just old, reliable. I do worry about him getting up there in age, but he's super steady as a wide receiver too. I'm going to go Cooper Kupp, guys. I have a good feeling about Cooper Kupp being rejuvenated this year. He was kind of in and out of the lineup last year with injuries, and he's been pretty hot in training camp right now. He's a stud wide receiver too for us. We'll go ahead and get Brandon Ayuk off the board, who I still think is a San Francisco 49er. Hopefully he plays, but when he does play, we know he's a wide receiver too. We're going to get Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith off the board next. These guys, the clear number 2s in their offense, but what happens if A.J. Brown or Tyreek Hill get hurt? These guys are top 5 receivers. These guys are monsters. I will continue taking them as my wide receiver 2s, but for where they're being priced in the 4th round on ESPN and Sleeper, they can be your number 3. I'm going to get DK Metcalf off the board here next. I mentioned Geno Smith and the passing upside there in that offense. It's a deep ball shot offense. Metcalf could have one of the best seasons of his career this year. I'm going Malik Neighbors next. I think Malik Neighbors he's the next dude. He is the next best receiver in the NFL. I think he's up there with Jamar Chase and those guys. I think Marvin Harrison can be too, but Neighbors is looking at 90-plus catches this year. Can easily see 150-plus targets. I know the QB sucks there, but they're going to target the hell out of Malik Neighbors. Fine. We'll get Michael Pittman Jr. off the board here. I think he's safe and steady. lead the team in targets. I think DJ Moore also pretty safe and steady to be the Bears wide receiver 1 this year. I do worry about the Bears' other receivers, but I think DJ Moore's kind of locked in. They paid him to do so. Next, I'll get Amari Cooper. We got to get Amari Cooper in there as wide receiver 24, lead guy for the Cleveland Browns. And if anything happens to Deshaun Watson, they have Jameis Winston. So Cooper should be maintaining his value. I'm just going to crank this down to wide receiver 72. There we go. Whoops. All right. So we're getting into the wide receiver 3s now. I think this group is electric. You want one of these guys as your wide receiver 3s. Zay Flowers, George Pickens, T. Higgins, Tank Dell. Flowers might be the number 1 receiver for Baltimore. Tank Dell is the 3rd receiver in Houston, but he offers huge upside. I will put – actually, this is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to move Tank Dell and Diggs down 1. I got to get Terry McLaurin up in here. And I'm going to move Tank Dell and Diggs down 1 more. 2 more. 3 more. Okay. So personally, I'm very concerned that the Texans offense is being overdrafted. I don't think there's room for Dell and Diggs to both succeed. One of these guys will miss. My money's on Diggs being a little underwhelming. I do think Tank Dell offers a lot of upside, but he's a 3rd wide receiver on a team. He's just not going to get there on snaps. I think he's going to be a boom-bust wide receiver 3. I'm taking Rashee Rice, Terry McLaurin, and Jaden Reed, and Deontay Johnson over the other 2 Houston receivers. McLaurin locked into number 1 target for Jaden Daniels. Rashee Rice, I don't expect a suspension. I want Rashee Rice on all my teams this year. And Jaden Reed is the wide receiver 1. Like everybody's been, who's the Packers wide? It's Jaden Reed. We saw this last year as he was the best player on that team. And Deontay Johnson is a target hog for Bryce Young this season. I will go ahead and get Chris Godwin out of the way here at wide receiver 34. I think he's locked. Godwin, I might take over Dell and Diggs because I know Godwin's the number 2. I'm seeing 130 plus targets. I'm seeing 80 to 90 catches. I might prefer Godwin over Dell and Diggs, honestly. I'm going Jackson Smith. I'll get Christian Kirk off the board here as a wide receiver 3. I think Kirk, he's safe and steady with our guy here. But I want to get Jackson Smith and the Jigba up here at wide receiver 36. I think there's a chance he leads the team in receptions and targets this year as he develops into the leading slot receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. I like that passing offense. I want to be involved there. I'll go ahead and get Calvin Ridley and Keenan Allen off the board here. I do worry about Keenan Allen, getting less and less as the year goes on. But I like Calvin Ridley as a deep ball threat. He's going to be boom bust, but I think he pairs well with Will Levis. Now we're going to just list a bunch of rookies here. A lot of fun upside rookies here. We're going to go Xavier Worthy. We'll go Rome Odunze, Ladd McConkey, and Keon Coleman. And you know what? I'm gonna go BTJ. Grab one of these rookie receivers. If you can get 2, cool. But you need one of these guys this year. They're all being drafted in the 100s. That's round 8, 9 of ESPN leagues. Worthy's locked into the number 2 role right now with Marquise Brown getting back from injury. Odunze is the number 3 receiver, and he's going to be the 3rd guy in snaps, but he could be a guy that gets more work as the season goes on. Ladd McConkey's the slot receiver for Justin Herbert. That should be pretty valuable. Keon Coleman might lead the Bills in snaps this year and just be the outside receiver. I do worry about Keon Coleman a little bit. I'm gonna rank Brian Thomas Jr. ahead of him because I think he's just a better profile. But I want Brian Thomas on my team. I think he could lead the Jags in receiving yards and touchdowns this year. I think that deep ball is going to be there, and I'm excited about that. We'll go ahead and get Christian Watson and D Hop off the board here. Quality bench players here as your number 3 or 4, probably your number 4. Watson sounds like he's fixed the hamstring and he's been healthy all offseason. He could be a guy that breaks out. We'll get Cortland Sutton off the board here. Let's go ahead and get Jordan Addison off the board here. Addison's going to have a suspension at some point, but not till later in the year, so just be wary of that. We'll go Hollywood Brown here just because you want a piece of the Chiefs. And then I'm going Romeo Doubs here, man. I'm pretty freaking excited about Romeo Doubs. I think he leads the Packers in touchdowns perhaps this year, just safe and steady, reliable. He's been tearing up training camp. I'm going to get Josh Palmer off the board here because I think he's the #1 receiver for the Chargers. I think McConkey leads them in receptions and maybe targets, but Palmer's going to lead them in yards and probably touchdowns. I'll go ahead and get Jameson Williams here. I just think he's a high-risk bench player that you're not going to feel comfortable starting, but I could be wrong there. We'll get both. Let's just get this tier here of the Buffalo receivers. I like Curtis Samuel a lot. I'm actually going to move Shakir down one notch behind Lockett because I think Shakir's the clear #3, #4 target. I do think Curtis Samuel, when healthy, will be the #2, #3 target, and Lockett will be the #3, #2 target for the Seahawks. I'll get Brandon Cooks off the board here. I think Cooks is the #2, #3 target for the Cowboys. I think Judy is the #3 target for the Browns, and we talked about them being more pass heavy this year. And I'm fine with Myers and Mike Williams here as being some nice pieces. I do want to boost up Dontavian Wicks, though, because all he needs is one injury to Dobbs, Watson, or Jaden Reed, and he's a must-start fantasy player. Now we're just looking at some boom-bust guys here. I'm going to go with some upside here. Adonai Mitchell. We'll go with Rashid Shaheed, just some raw upside guys that can score a lot of fantasy points. We'll get Darnell Mooney and Josh Downs in here. I like pulling Jalen Polk or Demario Douglas to be the #1 receiver for the Patriots. Fine, I'll get Adam Thielen and Gabe Davis off the board here. These guys, we know what they are. They're not great, but they're bench pieces. I'm gonna take. Yeah, it's looking ugly down here. We'll take a shot on Xavier Legette, just a high upside rookie. I don't see it happening for Pearsall this year. I think Demarcus Robinson is the clear #3 for Matthew Stafford. I think Wan'Dale Robinson, too, is going to be the #2 target for the Giants, whatever that's worth. Bateman, Boyd, Tolbert. There's a lot of junk down here, guys. How about this? I'm going to go Jalen McMillan here as the #3 for Tampa Bay. And we'll throw Tim Patrick in there at the end. I could have went Andre Yoshivas, but we'll throw Tim Patrick there. And there you have it, wide receivers for you guys. Wide receivers are ranked. Tight ends. We'll finish up here with the tight ends, and this is, to me, one of the most important decisions when you're drafting. Yeah, Demarcus Robinson, guys. Last year, we saw D-Rob open up lower on the depth chart, but he overtook Tutu Atwell at the end of the year. He got opportunities with Kupp banged up. Demarcus Robinson, man, he might be the dude. Rams run 3 wide receiver sets all the time. If Kupp or Nacua get hurt, Demarcus Robinson's the #1 waiver wire ad for that week. I don't think Luke McCaffrey is the #2 receiver. I think he's the slot receiver. When they do run 2 wide receiver stuff, I think you're going to see De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus rotate in there. McCaffrey, there hasn't been a lot of good talk about McCaffrey. I think it's kind of like he's kind of like a project for me. I think if I'm drafting Commanders, it's Terry McLaurin and the running backs and Jayden Daniels, and I think it's going to be kind of a revolving door. I do think McCaffrey's interesting, but we'll leave him on the waiver wire, I think. Tight ends, man. Who's tight end 1? I'm still going to rank Travis Kelce tight end 1. His snap counts might not be as what they used to be, but you're attaching yourself to Patrick Mahomes, and I think that's well warranted. I want the price is nice. I know ESPN, it's 20th overall. He usually goes in the 3rd round here, so I will take Kelce there, but I don't draft Kelce. I don't draft tight ends round 3. I like Laporta, but I don't draft Kelce or Laporta in round 3 because I like the tight ends later in the round. I want a chance at a top 5 tight end this year. I am ranking Trey McBride here as the tight end 3. I'm going to go Mark Andrews as my tight end 4. And this is the group. One of these guys will be tight end 1 this year if they stay healthy. I just like, why draft Kelce and Laporta when I can just wait for McBride or Mark Andrews in the 4th and 5th round? I think those guys are in the same tier. Honestly, between my top 5 or 6 tight ends, there was a difference of like 15 to 20 points. I'm going to put Kyle Pitts and Evan Ingram as tight end 5 and 6. I think Kyle Pitts, this is finally the year that we see Kyle Pitts grow up and be the tight end 1 that we always wanted him to be. And I think Evan Ingram leads the Jags in receptions and targets this year. He's safe and steady. He's a great player. Great trust with Trevor Lawrence. These guys, if you miss out on the early tight ends, this is what you want. I am concerned about Dalton Kincaid here, who I'm going to rank 7th. I think the snaps are going to be less for Dalton Kincaid than the other guys ahead of him. You're still going to see Dawson Knox on the field a lot. I think Kincaid leads the team in receptions and targets this year, but I just don't know if I see him with top tight end 1 upside as I see these top 6 guys. I will put George Kittle next. just safe and steady, high upside guy. He's one of the I think he's the best tight end in football when you include blocking and tight end responsibilities. I absolutely love George Kittle. And yeah, we're gonna go Njoku, Ferguson, and Bowers next here. And with Njoku, he's the number 2 target. He played really well. He was the tight end 1 down the stretch last year. He was the best tight end in football. Ferguson, super safe and steady as the number 2, number 3 target for Dak Prescott. And then I want to take shots on Bowers, but I don't think he's a startable tight end week 1. We need to see what that offense looks like, but I will take a shot on him. If you want Bowers on your team, you draft Bowers and then one of these other guys behind him here. And we're going Taysom Hill, guys. Taysom Hill's a tight end 1 this year. He's the running back 2 for the Saints. And he's going to be on the field a ton. He's going to be running, catching, and throwing this year. They're doing it all again with Taysom Hill. I want Taysom on my teams this year. I think you could go Taysom Hill and Brock Bowers as a duo and just kind of figure it out. I think that could totally work. I will go Dallas Goedert, 13, whatever. I'm not a big fan of Goddard this year. I just think he's kind of left in the dust after A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and now Jahan Dotson and Saquon Barkley there. I think he's just the 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th best player on the team. I'll put Dalton Schultz here at tight end 14, just a nice piece of the Texans offense, security blanket for CJ Stroud. It's getting tough here, guys. I want a tight end before this group here. I'll put Luke Musgrave here. I don't feel great about it. I like that Packers offense. They have a lot of weapons to throw the ball to, a little bit scary. We'll go Pat Freiermuth here. And then, I don't know what to do here. I'm not taking Hawkinson. He's going to miss most of the year. I think Cole Kmet is the tight end 2 on his own team. Pretty ugly here, guys. I'm going to go Conklin and Otton. I just think they're on the field a lot. Same with Hunter Henry. These guys are just kind of clunkers, but they're safe and reliable waiver wire targets. I'll get Cole Kmet off the board here, but I don't see it happening for Cole Kmet. He's the clear tight end 2 behind Gerald Everett in terms of preseason snaps and the preseason usage. He's the 5th receiver on the Bears this year after DJ Moore, Allen, Odunze, Everett, and Cole Kmet. Maybe even 6th after DeAndre Swift. Fine, I'll get TJ Hawkinson off the board here if you want to grab him late. And then we're just kind of in the dust here. I will put Mike Gesicki, who I think is a bounce back candidate for the Bengals. I'm going Zach Ertz here, who I think is the lead tight end for the Commanders as long as he can hold on to the job. We'll go Noah Fant, who's got the whole tight end room to himself in Seattle. I will go Waller retired, so that's weird. We'll get Jonnu Smith in here. He's not going to be reliable, though. Again, I think this year, more than ever, you need one of these top 10 tight ends. These guys play so much. If you don't have one of these top 10 tight ends this year, I think you messed up your draft. You don't want to be playing whack-a-mole with this group here. You just really don't. And down here, we're not drafting any of these guys down here. This is pretty fugly. I will go Juwan Johnson, who I do like. I'll throw Colby Parkinson in here, who I think is the tight end 1 for the Rams. I think Tucker Kraft's a pretty good tight end too. If Luke Musgrave gets hurt, we're all talking about Tucker Kraft. I'm going to throw Gerald Everett on the board just because I think he's outplaying Cole Kmet this year. We'll throw Okonkwo on there as the semi-lead tight end for the rough shot Titans room. Where is Theo Johnson is the tight end 1 for the Giants. I suppose Dulcich is the tight end 1 for the Broncos. I suppose Hayden Hurst is the tight end 1 for the Chargers. I'll throw Ben Sinnott in here as a sleeper that could get more work as the season goes on. And then we'll throw Michael Mayer in there. And good riddance. Let's be done with this tight end list here, guys. You really, really need a top 10 tight end this year. I do think you can make a Brock Bowers, Taysom Hill, Goddard, Schultz duo work. After that, though, I don't really want to be messing with this group. So grab your tight end early, guys. These guys all cost, and honestly, this last group from Pitts to Ferguson, they're all 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round picks. I think that's where you want to be. But hey, that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys learned some things. I will be updating my rankings on the website probably tonight or tomorrow. Cheat sheets, rankings, projections will all be updated for you guys to download. So go check out thefantasyfellowship.com. Use that August special that I have there for you guys. It's only $7. You're getting access to so much stuff. Honestly, it should be a lot more. But check it out. Thank you for your time. enjoy the football on this Thursday evening, and we'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.